Money isn't math, it's emotion. Fix Your Financial Triggers. Written by Ronnie Rowland. Published by Growth Literacy Lounge. What if the biggest threat to your bank account isn't your paycheck, your job, or your budget, but your emotions? Most of us approach money like it's a math problem. We think if we earn more, spend less, and follow the rules, everything will work out. But deep down, we know that's not true. Because we've followed the rules. We've made the spreadsheets. We've set the budgets. And somehow, we're still stuck. Here's the truth no one talks about. Your financial life is not built on logic, it's built on emotion. Every dollar you earn, save, or spend is influenced by fear, guilt, shame, pride, or even love. You don't just make financial decisions, you feel them. Why do some people self-sabotage the moment they start making more money? Why do others cling to scarcity even when abundance is within reach? The answer isn't found in calculators or bank statements. It's found in emotional patterns formed years ago, patterns you've likely never questioned. As Tony Robbins once said, it's not about the money. It's about the emotions we associate with money. This book is not about financial formulas, it's about uncovering the hidden beliefs that quietly control your relationship with money. It's about rewiring your emotional responses, so you can stop reacting and start choosing. You don't need another budget. You need a reset. Because once you fix the emotional triggers that keep pulling you back, the numbers will finally start making sense. Let's begin. Chapter 1: The Illusion of Control. Why numbers aren't the problem. You tell yourself it's about the numbers. You think if you could just make more, spend less, get out of debt, or finally stick to a budget, everything would change. So you read the books, download the apps, track the expenses, and promise this month will be different. But somewhere along the way, the plan breaks down. The savings disappear. The debt grows. The stress returns. And you wonder why something so logical feels so overwhelming. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Money problems are rarely about money. They're about how we feel when we deal with money. The numbers are just the surface. What's really running the show is what's happening underneath: emotions, stories, and unconscious patterns you've carried for years. It starts early. Maybe you grew up in a home where money was scarce, so now you live in constant fear of not having enough, no matter how much you earn. Or maybe you saw wealth used to control, shame, or manipulate, so you secretly reject it even as you chase it. Some of us overspend to feel worthy. Some of us hoard to feel safe. And some of us avoid money altogether to escape the emotions it stirs up. This isn't about being irresponsible. This is about being human. Money is one of the most emotionally charged areas of our lives, yet we're taught to approach it with pure logic. We're told to budget without ever examining why we overspend. We're told to save without exploring why we sabotage. We're told to invest without unpacking the fears that hold us back. And when we fail, we blame ourselves for not being smart enough, disciplined enough, or focused enough, never realizing we're fighting battles that began long before adulthood. The truth is, if managing money were only about math, we'd all be rich. But it's not. It's about emotion, memory, identity, and belief. It's about what money means to you, not what it actually is. And until you address the emotional weight behind your financial decisions, the patterns will repeat, no matter how good your plan looks on paper. You've likely already noticed these patterns. Maybe every time you get ahead financially, something happens that brings you back to zero. Maybe you feel guilty spending money on yourself, even when you can afford it. Maybe you fear success just as much as failure. These aren't financial issues. They're emotional triggers masquerading as money problems. You can't solve an emotional wound with a financial strategy. You need a new kind of awareness, one that lets you recognize the triggers as they happen, so you can pause, reflect, and choose differently. You need to understand the story you've been telling yourself about money and who you are in relationship to it. And most of all, you need to learn how to create emotional safety, so your nervous system doesn't go into survival mode every time you open a bill, look at your account, or think about your financial future. This book is about that shift. It's not about blaming your past or staying stuck in emotional loops. It's about identifying the beliefs, patterns, and triggers that have kept you cycling through the same financial struggles, so you can finally break free. You'll learn how to detach from the shame, defuse the fear, and rewrite the story. Because the moment you stop treating money like math and start treating it like emotion, everything changes. This isn't just personal development. It's personal freedom. And it starts with one powerful realization: you don't need more discipline, you need more emotional clarity. That clarity begins now. Not with a spreadsheet, but with a mirror. Not with numbers, but with truth. Chapter 2: Emotional Spending, When Your Wallet Talks for Your Wounds. You didn't mean to buy it. You told yourself you'd just look. Just scroll. Just browse. But then something caught your eye. It felt good. Comforting. Like a reward after a hard day or a relief from the stress you couldn't shake. Maybe it was small. Maybe it was big. Maybe it wasn't even something you needed. But in that moment, it didn't matter. You clicked, you swiped, you spent. And for a little while, it worked. You felt better, until the guilt crept in. This is emotional spending. And you're not alone. We like to think our purchases are rational. That we spend based on logic, price, or practicality. But the truth is, most of us spend based on how we feel, not what we need. We buy to feel powerful when we feel small. We spend to feel seen when we feel invisible. We shop to soothe boredom, calm anxiety, numb pain, or fill a void we can't quite name. Money becomes a language for what we don't know how to express. It becomes our translator when words fall short. And our spending becomes a mirror, not of who we are, but of what we crave emotionally. Think about the last impulse purchase you made. What were you feeling that day? What story were you telling yourself? Maybe it was, "I deserve this." Or "it's not that much." Or "I'll deal with it later." These aren't financial strategies. They're emotional coping mechanisms dressed up as casual decisions. Emotional spending doesn't always show up as extravagance. Sometimes it looks like generosity, giving beyond your means to feel appreciated. Sometimes it looks like control, refusing to spend anything to avoid the fear of loss. Sometimes it's disguised as productivity, buying courses, books, or planners as a way to feel in motion when you feel stuck. The surface behavior may differ, but the root is the same: emotion is in the driver's seat. This doesn't mean you're weak or broken. It means you're human. Emotions are powerful. And when we don't know how to process them, they sneak into our choices, especially financial ones. Because money touches everything: identity, safety, love, freedom, and self-worth. And when those things feel threatened, we reach for whatever offers quick relief. Often, that relief comes with a price tag. We're not taught how to sit with discomfort. We're taught how to silence it, with stuff, with speed, with solutions. But discomfort doesn't disappear. It buries itself in our patterns. That's why emotional spending repeats itself even when we regret it. The temporary fix becomes a cycle. Breaking that cycle starts with awareness. It's not about never spending emotionally again. It's about learning to notice when you are. It's pausing long enough to ask, what am I actually feeling right now? And what am I hoping this purchase will solve? Sometimes the answer is loneliness. Sometimes it's pressure. Sometimes it's just habit. But naming the emotion is the first step in disarming its power. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be present. The goal isn't restriction, it's reconnection. Reconnecting with yourself, your values, and your emotional needs so money becomes a tool, not a trap. Every dollar tells a story. When you start listening, not just judging, you begin to rewrite the narrative. You stop punishing yourself for emotional spending and start getting curious about it. And in that curiosity, you find freedom. Not because you spent less, but because you understood more. This chapter isn't about budgeting. It's about becoming emotionally fluent with your finances. Because once you stop using money to escape your emotions, you'll finally have the clarity and power to use it intentionally. Let's keep going. Chapter 3: The Scarcity Script, When Not Enough Becomes Your Default. There's a quiet voice that whispers in the background of your financial life. Sometimes it's loud. Sometimes it's subtle. But it's always there. It says things like, "You better save that, just in case." Or, "Enjoy it now, because it won't last." Or, "You'll never have enough, so don't get too comfortable." You may not notice it consciously, but it's shaping how you spend, save, and even dream. This is the scarcity script. And for many, it's been playing since childhood. Scarcity isn't just about lacking money. It's a mindset rooted in the fear of losing, of running out, of not being okay. It creates a constant sense of urgency, even when you're safe. It convinces you that no matter how much you have, it's never enough. And it turns every financial decision into a survival tactic. Maybe you grew up hearing, "We can't afford that," even when it wasn't true. Maybe you watched your parents argue over bills or hustle just to get by. Maybe you lived through job loss, eviction, or financial instability that left a lasting imprint. Experiences like these don't just teach you about money. They teach you how to feel about money. And often, what they teach is fear. That fear doesn't disappear when you earn more. In fact, it often grows. Because the more you have, the more you feel you could lose. You check your accounts constantly. You stress over small purchases. You feel guilt when you spend on yourself. You over-prepare for worst-case scenarios. And still, you don't feel secure. That's the trap of scarcity. It convinces you that security is a destination, when really it's an emotion. Scarcity makes you shrink. You play small. You say no to opportunities. You undercharge. You settle. You resist taking risks, even when they make sense. Because the unknown feels dangerous, and you've been conditioned to believe that staying safe means staying limited. But safety isn't found in holding back, it's found in trust. And trust is what scarcity steals from you. Scarcity doesn't just live in your bank account. It lives in your nervous system. It triggers the same survival response as physical danger. That's why a sudden bill can make your chest tighten. Why you panic when you see your balance drop. Why you feel shame when you can't control your spending. Your body reacts as if you're in danger, because emotionally you are. To heal from scarcity, you don't just need more income. You need more internal safety. You need to know that you're okay, even when things feel uncertain. That you can handle discomfort without spiraling. That your worth isn't defined by what's in your wallet. And that abundance isn't a number, it's a mindset. This shift doesn't happen overnight. But it starts with noticing the voice. That inner script that tells you to be afraid, to hold back, to expect the worst. Instead of obeying it, start questioning it. Is this fear true, or is it familiar? Am I reacting to the present, or to the past? Who taught me this version of safety, and is it still serving me? When you challenge the scarcity script, you don't become reckless. You become free. Free to make decisions from a place of clarity, not panic. Free to pursue opportunities that once felt too risky. Free to enjoy your money without guilt or fear. That freedom isn't reckless. It's healing. Because the real shift isn't from poor to rich. It's from fear to trust. And once you stop letting scarcity dictate your story, you'll realize something powerful. Enough was never out there, it was always in you. Let's go deeper. Chapter 4: Financial Shame, the Silent Saboteur. There's a heaviness that often comes with money. Not the weight of coins or bills, but the invisible weight of judgment. It's the feeling you carry when you avoid looking at your bank statement, when you hesitate to ask for help, when you feel like everyone else has it figured out but you. That weight is shame. And it's one of the most powerful forces shaping your financial life. Shame doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it hides in small moments: the hesitation to talk about money, the defensiveness when questioned about a purchase, the silence you keep when everyone around you seems more successful. Other times it roars. It tells you that you're behind, that you've failed, that you're not good with money and never will be. It doesn't just criticize your choices. It attacks your identity. The problem with shame is that it doesn't lead to change. It leads to hiding. You don't open your bills. You delay paying off debt. You avoid creating a plan because facing it feels like an admission of failure. The more shame you feel, the more disconnected you become from your finances, from your goals, and from your own self-worth. You might believe you're ashamed because you've made bad decisions. But the truth is, most people make financial mistakes. That's part of life. What turns a mistake into a burden is the meaning we attach to it. Shame says you didn't just overspend, you're irresponsible. It says you're not just in debt, you're broken. These stories keep you stuck not because they're true, but because you've never been taught to question them. Many of these beliefs didn't start with you. Maybe you saw your parents struggle and internalized the idea that money was always a source of pain. Maybe you were told you were bad with money before you even had any. Maybe you've been judged, mocked, or punished for your financial circumstances. Shame is often inherited, passed down like a family heirloom no one asked for. The way out isn't perfection, it's compassion. You cannot shame yourself into financial clarity. You can only walk there with honesty and grace. That starts by telling the truth. I feel ashamed. I've made choices I regret. I'm scared people will find out. These truths don't make you weak. They make you free. Because once they're spoken, shame starts to lose its power. You don't need to broadcast your financial story to the world. But you do need to tell it to yourself. Without judgment. Without blame. Just truth. This is where I am. This is what I've learned. This is what I'm ready to change. When you own your story, it stops owning you. Shame thrives in silence. But in the light of awareness, it shrinks. You begin to see your financial life not as a reflection of your worth, but as a system of habits, patterns, and experiences that can be understood and changed. You begin to recognize that your past decisions don't define your future. And most importantly, you begin to treat yourself the way you would treat someone you love, with understanding, not punishment. There is nothing wrong with you. There are only things you haven't yet understood. Money is not a moral scorecard. Your mistakes are not your identity. And shame is not your teacher, it's your cage. You're not here to carry guilt. You're here to create freedom. And that freedom begins the moment you stop hiding from your financial truth and start walking toward it with open eyes and an open heart. This is the work. This is the turning point. Let's keep moving. Chapter 5: The Money Mirror: How Finances Reflect Your Inner World. Look at your bank account. Not just as a number, but as a mirror. What you'll find isn't just a financial snapshot, it's a reflection of how you see yourself, how you feel about safety, value, freedom, and power. Your money story is never just about money. It's about everything underneath. And whether you realize it or not, your outer financial reality is constantly echoing your inner emotional landscape. Maybe your account shows struggle. Maybe it shows success. Maybe it looks stable on the outside but feels unstable on the inside. Whatever it reveals, it isn't random. It's shaped by the way you think, the way you feel, and the way you respond to both. Money doesn't lie. It reflects. If you constantly feel like there's never enough, you might find yourself clinging to every dollar, even when it costs you peace of mind. If you fear judgment, you might overspend to prove you're successful, even if it empties your savings. If you believe deep down that you don't deserve wealth, you'll find a way to lose it, sabotage it, or avoid it, without even realizing you're doing it. Your money habits are emotional habits. They are expressions of your core beliefs, acted out in transactions and behaviors. They tell the truth even when your words don't. You can say you're confident, but if you undercharge, your money reveals doubt. You can say you're free, but if you check your account 10 times a day, your money reveals anxiety. It's not about judgment, it's about awareness. Most people try to change the money without changing the mirror. They work harder. They hustle more. They seek new income streams, cut expenses, and chase the next financial goal. But nothing sticks. Because the external shifts don't last unless the internal beliefs evolve. You can't outrun a scarcity mindset. You can't outsave a fear of loss. And you can't invest your way out of a self-worth wound. The mirror always catches up. The good news is, this mirror works both ways. Just as your inner world shapes your finances, your financial habits can start to reshape how you see yourself. When you begin to make decisions from a place of clarity instead of reaction, when you track your spending without shame, when you set goals that reflect who you're becoming, not just who you've been, you change the reflection. Slowly, but surely, you start to see yourself differently. This work isn't about blame. It's about ownership. Not in the punishing sense, but in the empowering one. When you realize your money is reflecting your mindset, you stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstance. You start seeing yourself as a participant in a deeper story. A story that can be revised, rewritten, and reshaped, starting with the beliefs you choose to keep and the ones you're ready to let go. It's not always easy to look in the mirror. It can feel vulnerable, exposing, even painful. But it's also where transformation begins. When you look clearly, without flinching, you begin to notice patterns. You start to connect the dots. You realize that the fear you feel around money isn't always about money. It's about not feeling safe, or seen, or worthy. And those realizations, however small, create cracks in the armor. Cracks that let in light. You are not your balance. You are not your debt. You are not the version of yourself that made those decisions. You are the one who's willing to look, to reflect, and to grow. That alone is powerful. The mirror is here. Not to shame you, but to show you who you've been. So you can decide consciously who you want to become. Let's keep going. Chapter 6. Emotional Budgeting, Building Safety into the Numbers. Most budgets fail not because the math is wrong, but because the emotions behind the numbers are ignored. We're told to treat budgeting like a spreadsheet exercise, calculate your income, subtract your expenses, and stick to the plan. But real life isn't that clean. It's messy, emotional, unpredictable. And unless your budget accounts for that, it will break down. Not because you're irresponsible, but because it wasn't built for who you actually are. Traditional budgeting asks what you spend. Emotional budgeting asks why. Why do you overspend in certain categories? Why do you avoid looking at your statements? Why do you set strict limits only to rebel against them later? These are not financial questions. They're emotional ones. And until they're answered, you'll keep rewriting the same plan hoping for a different result. A budget is more than a financial tool. It's a reflection of your values, your fears, and your emotional needs. If it feels restrictive, it's probably because it was built from a place of fear. If it feels chaotic, it might be avoiding something deeper. But when it feels like a map, clear, supportive, flexible, it becomes a tool for self-trust, not self-control. The first step in emotional budgeting is honesty. Not just about what you earn and spend, but about how you feel when you do. What emotions come up when you think about saving? What stories do you tell yourself when you make a purchase? Where do you feel pressure to perform or conform? Where do you feel guilt or shame? These emotional undercurrents shape your behavior more than any percentage ever will. You might think giving yourself more structure will solve the problem. But what you might actually need is more grace, more space, more understanding. Emotional budgeting means building in room for reality, not just the ideal version of yourself. It means acknowledging that you will have hard days, emotional cravings, unexpected expenses, and moments where you just want to feel better. If your budget doesn't include space for those moments, it's not realistic. It's just rules waiting to be broken. That doesn't mean abandoning discipline. It means redefining it. Real discipline isn't rigid. It's responsive. It knows when to push and when to pause. It honors the full spectrum of your emotional life. So instead of trying to eliminate all unnecessary spending, emotional budgeting helps you understand what that spending is doing for you. Are you trying to feel comforted? Seen? Rewarded? Once you know the emotional purpose, you can meet that need in healthier ways, or at the very least, make the spending conscious rather than reactive. Start small. Track your expenses, but also track your feelings. Not in detail. Just simple notes: stressed, bored, excited, anxious, lonely. Over time, you'll begin to see patterns. Certain moods will match certain behaviors. And with that insight, you gain choice. Not control through force, but through awareness. Give your budget breathing room. Create categories that reflect real life, joy, fun, comfort, growth. Set boundaries that feel kind, not punishing. Plan for rest. Plan for mistakes. Plan for progress, not perfection. Because the goal isn't just to manage your money, it's to feel safe with it. When your budget feels like a punishment, it becomes something you avoid. When it feels like support, it becomes something you trust. And when you trust your plan, you stop needing willpower to follow it. You follow it because it was built for you, not the perfect version of you, but the real one. This is emotional budgeting. It's not about cutting back. It's about creating safety, clarity, and intention, so your money can support your life, not control it. Let's keep building. Chapter 7: The Self-Worth Loop, When Earning Becomes Proving. For many people, making money isn't just about paying bills or building a future. It becomes about something much deeper: proving value. Proving you're smart enough, capable enough, successful enough. You chase the next raise, the next client, the next milestone, not just for the outcome, but for the validation that comes with it. The numbers in your account start to feel like a reflection of your identity. And without realizing it, you tie your self-worth to your net worth. This is the self-worth loop. And it's exhausting. When your identity is linked to your income, you never feel like you've done enough. Even when you hit your goals, the satisfaction fades quickly. There's always another level to reach, another bar to raise. You might earn more than ever and still feel like a failure. Not because you are, but because your sense of worth was never rooted in being, only in doing. It starts innocently. Maybe you grew up being praised for your achievements. Maybe you were told that success was the path to love or respect. Maybe money gave you a sense of control when everything else felt uncertain. So you learned to equate doing well financially with doing well personally. But that connection, once formed, becomes a trap. Because money fluctuates. Business slows. Life happens. And when it does, you don't just lose income, you lose identity. You might feel this in the pressure to constantly perform. In the guilt you carry when you take a break. In the fear that people will see you differently if you're not always winning. You may find it hard to rest, to receive, to accept help. Because somewhere inside, you've decided that your value must be earned. But self-worth isn't a paycheck. It's not something you prove. It's something you remember. And remembering it means separating who you are from what you do. That doesn't mean you stop striving or stop growing. It means your identity is no longer held hostage by outcomes. You become free to succeed without chasing approval. Free to fail without feeling like a failure. Free to earn, not to prove, but to provide, to support the life you choose, not the role you think you need to play. This shift isn't easy. The world often reinforces the opposite message. We celebrate hustle. We glorify productivity. We admire wealth without asking what it costs. And if you've built your life around external validation, untangling that can feel like unraveling who you are. But you are not your results. You are not your revenue. You are not your resume. You are someone who exists with worth, even in stillness. Start by noticing the stories. When you feel the need to overwork, overlive, or overachieve, ask what you're trying to prove, and to whom. Sometimes the answer will surprise you. Often, you're still trying to prove your worth to a voice from the past. A parent, a teacher, an old version of yourself. But you don't have to keep living in that story. You get to redefine success. You get to choose what enough looks like. You get to build a life that reflects your values, not your insecurities. And you get to earn money from a place of wholeness, not emptiness. When you untangle your worth from your wealth, something powerful happens. You stop chasing. You start choosing. You stop proving. You start creating. And in that space, money becomes what it was always meant to be, a tool, not a mirror. You are already enough. The numbers don't get to decide that. Let's move forward. Chapter 8: Fear of Having, When Abundance Feels Unsafe. It sounds strange at first. Why would anyone fear having more? Isn't abundance the goal? More money, more freedom, more options. But for many, the idea of abundance stirs something unexpected. Anxiety. Guilt. discomfort. Instead of feeling empowered, you feel exposed. Instead of peace, you feel pressure. And that's because while scarcity is painful, it's also familiar. Abundance, on the other hand, is unknown. And what's unfamiliar often feels unsafe. This fear doesn't always show up clearly. Sometimes it looks like self-sabotage, overspending right after a windfall, backing out of a promising opportunity, or suddenly losing momentum when things are finally going well. Other times, it shows up in hesitation. You avoid raising your rates, delay launching your ideas, or dismiss your desires as unrealistic. You tell yourself it's humility or caution. But underneath, it's fear. Fear that having more will change you, isolate you, or invite judgment. Maybe you grew up around messages like rich people are greedy or don't get too comfortable. Maybe you watched someone close to you gain and lose money quickly and associate success with instability. Maybe you've simply never seen an example of someone who had wealth and peace at the same time. So when things start to go well, your nervous system sounds the alarm. This is new. This is risky. Better pull back before it's taken away. Fear of having isn't about greed. It's about survival. If you've spent most of your life struggling, your identity may have become wrapped in that struggle. Who am I without the chaos? Who am I if I'm not fixing something? Having more can trigger a deep sense of vulnerability, not because something bad is happening, but because something good is, and your body doesn't yet know how to hold that safely. We don't talk enough about this. We talk about fear of failure, but not fear of success. We prepare for loss, but not for gain. Yet many people subconsciously stay small, not because they can't expand, but because expansion feels like exposure. More money might mean more responsibility, more visibility, more expectations. And if you've been hurt, rejected, or judged before, your brain may equate those things with danger. That's why healing your relationship with money isn't just about releasing scarcity, it's about learning to receive. Learning to hold good things without guilt. To allow ease without suspicion. To believe that stability doesn't mean the other shoe is about to drop. That you don't have to earn safety through constant struggle. Receiving is a skill. And like any skill, it can be practiced. Start small. Notice the moments you downplay good news. The times you resist compliments, help, or rest. The part of you that says this is too good to be true. That's the same part that will struggle with financial abundance. Not because it isn't possible, but because it isn't yet safe. You can make it safe. You can learn to expand and stay grounded. To receive and stay connected. You can build a nervous system that doesn't just survive lack, but knows how to live with enough. This isn't about pretending you're never afraid. It's about building the capacity to feel fear and keep going anyway. Abundance is not a threat. It's a new environment. And you can grow into it. You don't have to shrink to stay protected. You don't have to sabotage to feel in control. You can have more and still be you. The fear is real, but it doesn't have to lead. Let it walk beside you, not in front. Let's keep expanding. Chapter 9: Financial Triggers. When the past controls the present. You're not just reacting to the numbers in your bank account. You're reacting to what they mean to you. A low balance doesn't just signal less money, it can trigger panic, shame, or a flood of old memories. A sudden expense might not just be inconvenient, it might feel like the rug is being pulled out from under you. These moments aren't logical. They're emotional flashbacks. And they're more common than you think. Financial triggers are emotional reactions to money-related events that feel much bigger than the situation deserves. You might find yourself spiraling after an unexpected bill or snapping at a partner over a purchase. You might freeze when it's time to make a decision or go numb when it's time to open the mail. These aren't signs of weakness, they're signs of unprocessed history. Your brain is always scanning for danger, and when it recognizes a pattern that resembles a past threat, it responds as if it's happening again. If you grew up in a home where money was a source of conflict, even a simple budgeting conversation can feel like a fight waiting to happen. If you experience sudden financial loss, any dip in your income might feel catastrophic. These emotional reactions aren't about the present. They're echoes from the past. Triggers don't ask for permission. They show up fast, often before you've had time to think. And once you're in the spiral, it's easy to believe that what you're feeling is the full truth. But it's not. It's just familiar. And recognizing that can change everything. The key isn't to eliminate triggers. It's to learn how to recognize them in real time. To pause when your heart starts racing. To breathe when your thoughts start spiraling. To ask, what is this really about? Sometimes the trigger is a reminder of a childhood fear. Sometimes it's linked to a belief you didn't know you were still carrying. Either way, the reaction is a clue, not a command. We often think healing means never getting triggered. But real healing means getting triggered and choosing differently. It means creating space between the reaction and the response. It means knowing that a financial setback doesn't mean you're a failure. That a disagreement about money isn't a threat to your safety. That you can sit with discomfort without making it worse. Financial triggers also live in relationships. You may find yourself reacting not to your partner, but to a past version of yourself. A moment when you felt powerless, unworthy, or left behind. Without realizing it, you project that fear onto the current situation. That's why conversations about money can feel so charged. They're rarely just about the numbers. They're about identity, memory, and meaning. To move forward, you need to make peace with the part of you that's still afraid. Not by pushing it away, but by listening to it. What does this fear want you to know? What is it trying to protect you from? When you respond with compassion instead of criticism, you create the emotional safety you didn't have back then. And from that safety, new choices become possible. You're not broken because you react. You're responding exactly as someone would who's lived through what you've lived through. But now you have the awareness to shift. Now you have the tools to pause. Now you have the power to respond, not repeat. Your past shaped your patterns, but it doesn't have to define your future. The trigger doesn't get the final word. You do. Let's keep reclaiming your voice. Chapter 10: Rewriting the Script, Creating a New Financial Identity. You've lived most of your financial life according to a script you didn't write. It was handed to you through experiences, family beliefs, cultural norms, and emotional conditioning. Maybe your script says money is hard to keep, or that success comes with sacrifice. Maybe it tells you that wealth makes you selfish, or that you have to work twice as hard just to stay afloat. These narratives don't announce themselves directly. They show up in habits, in reactions, in choices that repeat without conscious thought. And until you examine the script, you keep performing the same role. Changing your financial reality requires more than new strategies. It requires a new identity. One that's not shaped by fear or lack, but by clarity and intention. That starts with becoming aware of the old story, not to judge it, but to understand it. Where did it come from? Who taught it to you? Whose voice do you hear when you feel doubt or guilt? Most of these stories were never chosen. They were inherited. And what was inherited can be questioned. What was learned can be unlearned. You are not obligated to carry a money identity that was built on survival. You can thank it for getting you this far, and then set it down. Because survival isn't the same as thriving. Struggle may have shaped you, but it doesn't have to define you. You get to decide who you are financially. You get to write a new role. This isn't about pretending the past didn't happen. It's about choosing not to let it speak louder than your future. A new financial identity isn't a mask. It's a deeper truth, one that was always there but got buried under layers of conditioning. It's not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more fully yourself, without the distortions of fear, shame, or scarcity. Start by asking better questions. Not why am I so bad with money? But, what beliefs am I still carrying that no longer serve me? Not how do I fix myself? But how do I support the version of me that's growing? These questions open new paths. They invite you to lead instead of react. They shift the focus from control to connection. Then, begin to act in alignment with your new script. Not all at once, but in small, intentional ways. Speak about money with more curiosity and less judgment. Make decisions that reflect trust instead of fear. Give yourself permission to grow without needing to earn your worth every step of the way. Your identity shifts as your actions shift. And the more consistent those actions become, the more real the new story feels. Of course, the old script won't disappear overnight. It will whisper to you in moments of stress, in times of uncertainty. But now you'll recognize it. And that recognition is power. Because once you see the story, you're no longer trapped inside it. You're the author. A new identity isn't built on perfection. It's built on awareness. It's created by showing up again and again with a new intention, a new voice, a new lens. One that says you are capable, trustworthy, and safe to handle more. One that honors your growth, not just your grit. One that holds space for joy, not just survival. You're not starting from zero. You're starting from truth. And the truth is, you've always had the power to choose who you are, not just with money, but because of it. Let's keep writing the story only you can tell. Chapter 11: Emotional Wealth, Redefining What It Means to Be Rich. You've been taught to measure wealth in dollars. In assets, accounts, and accumulation. Rich, we're told, means having more money, more things, more status. But what if that's only part of the picture? What if true wealth isn't just about what you have, but how you feel? Not just about numbers, but about peace, presence, and freedom? Emotional wealth is the part of the equation most people miss. And without it, even a full bank account can feel empty. Emotional wealth is the ability to feel safe in uncertainty. To trust yourself with abundance. To enjoy what you've built without guilt. It's the capacity to give without fear of depletion, and to receive without feeling unworthy. It's not something you find after you make more money. It's something you cultivate as you build your financial life, because without it, more is never enough. Think of the people you've known who seemed to have everything and were still miserable. Or those with modest means who carried deep peace. The difference wasn't their income, it was their relationship with it. Emotional wealth is what allows money to serve your life instead of control it. It's what keeps success from turning into self-destruction. And it's what gives your financial goals meaning beyond achievement. Cultivating emotional wealth starts by asking a deeper question: what does rich really mean to you? Not what you've been told it should mean, but what actually feels rich to your body, your heart, your life. Is it time freedom? Is it emotional safety? Is it being able to say no without guilt, or yes without fear? These aren't luxuries. They're part of a complete definition of wealth. You might find that your old definition was borrowed, from family, from media, from cultural norms. Maybe it told you to hustle endlessly, to never be satisfied, to chase numbers that never seemed to lead anywhere peaceful. Maybe it convinced you that more is always better, even if it costs your health, your relationships, or your joy. Emotional wealth invites you to pause and ask, is this version of success actually making me feel successful? True wealth includes money, but it also includes the ability to feel, to connect, to rest, to create without pressure and to give without resentment. It includes the freedom to stop proving, the courage to set boundaries, and the clarity to know when enough is truly enough. Without emotional wealth, financial growth can feel like a burden. With it, even small gains can feel expansive. This is the new vision. A version of success that honors both the external and internal. Where your nervous system isn't in a constant state of fight or flight. Where you don't feel like you're always chasing, fixing, or bracing for something to go wrong. Where joy becomes part of the plan, not something you postpone until you deserve it. It's not about rejecting money. It's about expanding what money means. You can still build. You can still grow. But now, the growth includes you. All of you. Your feelings. Your needs. Your pace. Emotional wealth doesn't mean never wanting more. It means being grounded enough that more no longer defines you. Rich is not just a number. It's a feeling. And you get to define it for yourself, not just once, but over and over, as you grow, evolve, and expand. You've done the work to understand your patterns. You've faced the triggers, rewrote the story, and reclaimed your identity. Now, it's time to live from a place of wholeness. Not just with money in your pocket, but with peace in your body. That's emotional wealth. And that's where your richest life begins. Take care and be well.